Nation! You're now listening to the most opinionated, the most exciting, the most son of a Schmidt. You guys actually do something useful here, right? Like, is anything you do even beneficial to someone? Whatever. Now to the show that literally has tens, that's right, tens of followers. The show that brings the Ozone Radio Network to levels of mediocrity that only Michigan fans would know. This is the Sons of Schmidt, starring Mike Meals and Brandon Zimmerman on the Ozone Radio Network.
Welcome back, Sons of Schmidt fans. This is episode 16 of the third season of the Sons of Schmidt podcast here on the Ozone Radio Network. This is your host, Mike Meals, and joining me as he almost always does, that's going to change here in the future for at least 1 week, is my good buddy, Brandon Zimmerman. What is going on, Brandon? How you doing,
Michael Meals, I'm so excited to be here. Feeling it today. Feeling it.
Yeah, y'all pumped up, is it?
Yeah, I got cramped at work all day, and I'm ready to be released from my cage. It's on.
You know what it was? It was that commercial you recorded. That's what's got you pumped. I can feel it.
One take, man. One take.
Amazing.
Have we ever done a commercial in one take?
Never. Not once.
I'm feeling it, man.
The history of the show.
I'm telling you, I'm feeling it.
I can tell. All right, man. So, obviously, we've talked about it a little bit before. The next game Ohio State has, number 6 Ohio State, 12-1, 9-1 in the Big Ten. Big Ten champs will be January 1st in the Rose Bowl against number 9 Washington, who went 10-3, 7-2 in the Pac-12. With that being said, that is the extent of almost anything we're going to talk about the Rose Bowl this week for. As I've mentioned, it'll probably be the week going right into the Rose Bowl is when you actually have our breakdown of the game. Just want to cover a few other things this week. Last week, obviously, the big news was Ryan Day taking over as head coach for the Ohio State Buckeyes next year and Urban Meyer's retirement. We did this a little bit last week. We're going to do this week again. We've done it the last couple of years. We're going to have a couple awards to give out for the end of the season, looking at the best plays, the best players on both sides of the ball, a few things like that. And then we're going to do a little bit of just bowl season stuff. We're going to talk about a couple games and key matchups and intriguing matchups that are coming up. And then we got a little special something for you here, a little rapid fire session to close out the show after our Son of a Schmidt. So we got a pretty full show tonight, but you know, we started every week. I've always got to know, Brandon, what is in your glass? What are you drinking this evening?
I went with Old Faithful. I went with Larceny. I've talked about it a few times. Like, I love that stuff for the value. So I'm going with Larceny tonight.
Well, now I sound really bad because I am drinking moonshine, which is the same stuff I've drank the last couple shows. Last week, I think I switched it up, but I went back to the new bottle I just picked up. It's kind of dangerous. The Specs that I buy this at is right next to the gym that I go to, so I never have to worry about running out as long as I go to the gym. So it's a nice little added bonus. So
that's a good reason to go to the gym.
That's what I'm thinking, right? So with that being said, before we get into our OSU awards for the season, before we take our break, is there anything you want to put out here? I mean, it's really an actual slow week in the news cycle for us this week as opposed to last week. But anything that's on your mind that you want to get off your chest to start with?
No, but since you said it was slow week, I'm sure shit'll, come out here during the show.
It'll be about the time this thing hits post-production. You're exactly right. I'll be like, oh, the whole show's worthless now, so thanks a lot.
Yeah. So, didn't that happen with the Silver Bullets guys where they did their show and then –
like it released, and then an hour later it came out that Urban Meyer was retiring or something. It's like, oh, damn.
Wah, wah.
But that being said, I'm going to ask this because we kind of used this time previously to discuss the not giving a damn about the college football playoff rankings. The Ohio State basketball team is actually not that bad. They've started the season pretty well. Do you have anything on the Buckeyes? Because I will tell you now, as much as I love Ohio State, the only Ohio State basketball I've watched this year was the throwback game at St. John's Arena when we were in Columbus sitting at the bar. So I know they're doing well. Do you have anything to add, or are we still not kicked into basketball mode just yet?
I'm impressed that we went this long without even saying the word basketball. No, I really got nothing. I tried to watch them once. I think it was an early game like Creighton, and they were up by 12, and then I turned it on, and Creighton went on a 10-0 run. I'm like, man, I can't do this. So I turned it. I was the bad luck. They wound up winning. So I've kind of stayed away. They seem exciting.
Yeah, I mean, everything
it's cool
I've
to
read.
See that they're doing good. I saw Micah Potter went to Wisconsin, the transfer guy.
Yeah, I saw that.
I mean, that's literally in his DNA. So, I mean, he's a tall white dude with a buzz cut. So it had to happen.
Yeah, it was just a natural fit. I'm surprised he didn't end up there to start with. But
yeah,
I do have a feeling. I know later this off season, before we actually stop like we typically do, I've actually got another guest lined up who is a big basketball fan. So you've met this particular person. You met him at TCU game. You re-met him on Saturday of the game. It's a good friend of mine. She's already said she'd come on the show. So Janelle.
Oh, Janelle, yeah.
So she's a big basketball fan too. So we'll probably get some real basketball talk on record at some point.
Thank goodness we'll get somebody.
Somebody has to know basketball. Also, speaking of that, next week, as we've mentioned, I know, Brandon, you've got a couple things coming up. So we're going to have a special guest joining me for the show. We've got it all lined up, but just in anticipation, I don't want to drop that just yet because we still have to talk to this particular guy, and I know he's going to be all excited. So most Buckeye fans know this guy. They're going to be excited to have him back on the air, even if it's just once or twice. But we're looking forward to that. It's going to be a big deal, and he's really going to enjoy the shit out of it.
You guys have fun with that. I'll be knee-deep in some Mai Tais next week.
There's no guarantee I won't have a Mai Tai just so you don't have it.
You won't be having a Mai Tai in Hawaii. That
is true. I'll be having it in Houston where it's roughly 35 degrees right now, and I'm freezing to death.
Oh, pobre baby.
Yeah, it sucks. But anyways, what we will do is, we did our Schmidt picks all season. I will get your picks from you for bowl games for the week that you're gone so we can get those recorded too. But unless you have anything else, man, we're going to go ahead and pause this one. We'll come back. We'll do the OSU season awards right after this break.
Let's do it. I know they're waiting.
This is the Ozone Radio Network, a Hayes and Cannon production. For the latest episodes of all your favorite podcasts covering Buckeye Nation, look for the Ozone Radio Network on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, and Speaker. You can also find the latest episodes by clicking on the Hayes and Cannon tab at theozone.net. Once again, here are the Sons of Schmidt.
All right, man. So when, like I said, we started to do this last week. We had everything started up and wrote out, and with Urban announcing his retirement, we kind of transformed it and morphed it into a Urban Meyer era awards. But the last couple of years on the show, we've always given out our postseason awards just based off that previous year. It's kind of nice to reflect back and recognize these guys for really, entertaining us for 13 weeks out of the season before the bowl season starts. I mean, I've mentioned it before. These are the 13 or 14 favorite weeks of mine during out the season. So I just like to take a quick minute here and look back. You've got a goofy-ass smile on your face. I'm a little concerned about you now. So, but what we're going to do, we're going to start on the offensive side of the ball. Obviously, these are the guys that are usually the playmakers. These are also the guys that were on the side of the ball that was the most successful this season. We're going to go out. We're going to give out the player of the year, the MVP, and then we'll break it down by a couple positional spots. So starting with offensive player of the year, pretty obvious choice for most Buckeye fans, and I think we're going to agree on this one. But who was your player of the year for the Buckeyes in 2018 on offense?
Yeah, this is an easy one for me. I mean, it's only one guy on Ohio State was the true Heisman champion. I think we're allowed to claim that. UCF did with the national championship. Like, we sure as shit can do it for some arbitrary award. So the true Heisman Trophy winner, Dwayne Simba Haskins.
Well, the Downtown Athletic Club of Katy, Texas, was also handing out their Heisman Award. I am the sole member and voting member of that committee, so I also am giving my Heisman to Dwayne Haskins. So easy, obvious answer. I mean, he's going to have 5,000 yards, 50 touchdowns. I mean, just an amazing year. Now, a little bit different, as we talked about before. MVP, which the true definition is most valuable player, doesn't always have to be the same as the player of the year. Who was your MVP?
I took the easy way out. I went with Haskins on this one too. I'm just not sure. I think with the skill set that Ohio State had this year, the returning talent at wide receiver, Dwayne Haskins was, the key piece to keep that together. I don't know if any of the backups could have utilized them the way that they needed to. So I think I'm going to go Dwayne Haskins, most valuable player also.
By no means do I think Dwayne Haskins was not valuable. I think he makes a very strong case, obviously, and I'm not saying that's a bad pick, but I kind of took this just a little bit different. I actually went with Paris Campbell. He was the most reliable playmaker for the entire season, so I had to go with Paris Campbell in this one. I just a little bit of a change up there. So now sticking on the offensive side of the ball, though, we have the best wideout. I know you can kind of bend and break the rules as you want to, but tell me who the best wide receiver was in your mind this year.
It's someone that I've been a fan of for years now.
Clearly Terry McLaurin, right?
That's it. No, this guy, I mean, God, it's been, 3 years that we've been saying that this guy's the best wideout on the team. I'm not changing my mind. He kind of disappeared there towards the end, but KJ Hill is my best wideout on the team. I know technically he's an H-back, and we get into semantics, but, it's our damn show, so we're going to make up our own rules. So I'm going KJ Hill, best wideout on the team.
Well, it's like you and I had talked about before. KJ Hill is the more of a wideout H-back, and Paris Campbell is more of the true definition in this offense of an H-back. So I'll allow this one. We'll let this one slide. For me, I actually went with your old buddy, Terry McLaurin. I mean, he was just huge this year. He finally made that leap from being a pain in the ass to being a damn good receiver and came up big multiple times all year long. I did have an asterisk next to McLaurin's name that had he not gotten hurt, Austin Mack would have probably been the answer to that one for me. Unfortunately, he went down with his injury. But, I went with McLaurin on this. Now, to spread it out just a little bit, running back and H-back, I have the two of those positions together. Who was the best running back or H-back in your mind this year?
Well, that's where I'm going to go with Paris Campbell. I mean, we can't deny what he's done. He's that guy – when Ohio State chose to get him the ball and really focused on it, like, that guy took over every game that Ohio State wanted him to. Ohio State did a lot mid part of the year where they were kind of working on some other things, but Paris Campbell, without a doubt. Yeah,
that clean sweep for me too. I went with Paris here also, but it's funny because you've been screaming for KJ Hill for the last 3 years that we've done the show. And the same time, I've been screaming Paris Campbell's name. So, it's kind of an obvious choice for me there too. I mean, I do not deny the fact that I absolutely love Paris Campbell, and I think he had a fantastic season. So before we go on to defense, anything on the offense you want to throw in here? Any other names that stuck out to you or anything?
I'm excited about the future with this offense. I wrote an article about it yesterday, kind of talking about how good this offense was this year, and I feel like it could be almost just as good next year with guys like Olive and Austin Mack, and you got Wilson coming in, who is the first recruit that I'm legit excited about in a long time. I think that guy at wide receiver is going to be awesome. So, Michael Jordan, I mean, he had some good times. He's kind of the leader of that front five there, and we'll see what happens next year with him. Does he move back to guard? Does he stick at center? I think he'll stick at center, but I don't know. I just had to throw him out there too, just because he is such a big part of that offensive line, even though he forgot to snap like 30% of the year.
Well, I normally would put in offensive lineman of the year. Like, we had one last year and we had one the year before, but quite frankly, I was not impressed with anyone on the offensive line enough to really want to award anyone anything. So that's why we don't have that. I don't care that Michael Jordan is now a consensus All-American because I didn't see it, and I watched every game multiple times this year. So don't get me wrong, I love those guys. I love Michael Jordan, but I just did not feel that was worthy of an award. So we're not going to do offensive line this year. So,
well, and one thing else I want to bring up, I've been kind of monitoring it this year. Both of us, like Paris Campbell, KJ Hill. Do you know what those two wound up the regular season combined for? This was in my article yesterday. Did you study?
I did not study. I didn't know there was going to be a test, but I'm going to say 140 catches, 1,500 yards.
You're very close. Those two combined from the H-back spot for 144 catches, 1,803 yards, and 17 touchdowns.
Yeah, not bad.
Right next to them, Terry McLaurin and Johnny Dixon combined for 74 catches, 1,311 yards, and 18 touchdowns. That's pretty crazy from those wide receiver spots.
They couldn't get to 20?
Yeah. They got 35 combined, though, so that's not too bad.
Yeah, I'm disappointed. Anyways, all right, man. Let's flip over and look at the defensive side of the ball. So starting with the same route we went before, defensive player of the year, who was the best player for the Buckeyes this season in your mind on the defense?
There's some obvious choices. I'm going to go actually a different route on this one. For much maligned group, there was one guy that kind of was the consistent player and was like the only one good there, and he was like really the only presence in that second level for a large part of the year. I'm going to go with
Congratulations, Pete Warren.
Yeah.
No, Warner.
I'm going to go with Malik Harrison. That guy, I think next year he's going to turn into a very dominant force, and I know we had texted about it too, like, as much as the defense was a liability this year, depending on who comes back next year, that defense could very easily carry this team next year. And one of those guys is going to be Malik Harrison, who completely took over some games when he needed to.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. But that was a good pick. I will give you that. I like sometimes when people go outside the norm like that. That's why I like with my Paris Campbell pick. That's kind of why I went there. But my defensive player of the year was probably the one that most people would go with. It was one of two options, I think, in my mind. But I had to go with Draymond Jones. He just had a monster season, was easily the best player on defense all year long, consistently. And had he not been there, the defense turns out completely different this season. So I went with Draymond Jones.
Yeah, I mean, you can argue with that one. And as you will see, I'm kind of in line with that thinking too when you get to the next ones.
I figured as much. I was going to say, I thought you had something to say there, so I'll have to – we'll get that cleaned up in post-production. Looking at defensive MVP, kind of the same thing as we talked about with the offense. The most valuable player on defense this year. I believe we had the same one on this answer, but go ahead and give me your MVP of the defense.
MVP of the defense for me is going back to your defensive player of the year, and I think it's Draymond Jones. I think that, that guy's presence in the middle, his stat line, the way he was able to just consistently make plays. He didn't really disappear at any points. He was always a big part of it, even when he was battling the injuries towards the middle part of the year there. Draymond Jones is my defensive MVP.
And see, this is where the difference in the way that you hand out the award comes into play for me, because Draymond Jones was the best player. I believe he was the best defensive lineman. Spoiler alert, that's going to be my pick here in a minute. But the MVP of the defense in my mind was Chase Young. There were multiple games this season where he took over and just decided that he was going to dominate this game and did so. So I had to go with Chase Young as my MVP. So what about defensive line? You've already figured out who mine is. I'm pretty sure I know who yours is, but who is your best defensive lineman?
Once again, I'm going Draymond Jones here. And I just want to say his stats real quick, because this dude is getting no love nationally. There's no All-Americans. I don't think he got third team, but this guy's season was impressive, especially when you consider who was around him and the youth and the inexperience. And
who wasn't around him at TCU.
Just imagine what him and Chase Young would have been able to do with Nick Bosa over there. But even with that, with him being the primary thing, the focus of the offensive line, he finished with 40 tackles, 13 tackles for loss, 8.5 sacks, forced fumble, 5 QB hurries, 2 passes broken up, a pick 6. This dude's just had a great year. And I would love for Draymond to come back, and it is sounding more and more like he's going to play in the Rose Bowl, which is awesome, because I know when they asked him right away, he was like, we will see. But as many of the beat guys and girls have mentioned, he is on the list to speak to the reporters tomorrow. So that would kind of imply that he's probably going to play in the Rose Bowl. So I'm excited about that. I would love for him to come back another year, but we all thought he was gone last year and he was going to be a first-round pick. He's gone after this year.
Yeah, we don't have him on our rapid fire, but I'm a little surprised. I would like to see Jones back. I don't see him coming back. There are a lot of really good defensive linemen in college football, and if he can get out and ride the wave, I don't blame him one bit. So, anyways, before we get into any more of that, what about your best linebacker? I know you've already mentioned a guy as your player of the year. Malik Harrison is my best linebacker. I'm assuming he's yours. Is that the case?
Yep, definitely.
Well, that was an easy one to get through. Now, going to the backfield in the defense. Best defensive back. Now, I'm pretty sure, I know we talked about this before the show in our pre-production meeting, but correct me if I'm wrong, you went with Damon Arnett and Kendall Sheffield here. Is that correct?
Negative, Ghost Rider. No, this one was a little more tough because there's really no one back there that has great stats or anything. So I went with the most consistent, steady presence back there, the guy that I felt like was more of the MVP type of thing. And if he would have been gone, it just all would have went even more to shit. So I went with Jordan Fuller on this one, and I really hope he comes back next year.
Yeah, I think Jordan Fuller is the obvious pick, just like you said, because of his consistency. But for best defensive back, I went with Shaun Wade. He played well in 3 different positions. Had he been given the shot from the get-go, I think he would have had a fantastic season. But, they decided to wait 9 weeks into the season before they decided to actually put him on the field. So I went with Shaun Wade on that one. So.
Well, and I really like that one because the selflessness of that dude. I mean, he bounced around like from corner, nickel / back to safety, and kind of doing both things at once. And then, after Brendan White stepped up to that safety spot, after it looked like Shaun Wade had officially moved there, he went right back to corner and played a great game against Michigan, played a great game against Northwestern. So, yeah, I mean, you cannot argue with Shaun Wade being named that because, I mean, and next year, Shaun Wade is going to be a stud.
He's the next first-round pick out of Ohio State defensive backfield in my mind. So
without a doubt.
Unless Jordan Fuller comes back and just has a monster season. But that being said, let's look at special teams. Who was your special team player of the year?
I know we kind of talked sort of like this last week about the era, and I think this guy fell in it, but I'm going Drew Chrisman. Like I said, Adam Borland wrote that article, 2 weeks ago now, that just has me completely sold on it, how damn good Drew Chrisman has been this year. And I think you look at like the Michigan State game and stuff, like special teams guy took over that game. So I'm going Drew Chrisman.
Yeah, he is the reason they won the Michigan State game. Absolutely. I don't think Chrisman's a bad one, but I actually touched on it last week also on the era picks. And I think you have to give Terry McLaurin a tip of the hat here also. I kind of tag team that one because McLaurin teamed up with Chrisman to make him look even better this season. So the play of those two guys, both co-special teams player of the year in my mind. Now looking on the sidelines, who was your assistant coach of the year?
For this one, I had to go with our new head guy, Ryan Day. The way that he got thrown into a crappy situation preseason. And I thought preseason he handled it great when he finally did, give out his updates, and he had the presser and, was actually talking to people. I mean, you can tell why so many people like him. And even with me, as I've mentioned a few times, like I have reservations about Ryan Day as head coach. But every time I listen to him talk in a press conference or listen to him in a interview, like I find myself like believing in him. So like he's got a charisma about him, and the way he stepped into that situation, won those first 3 games with everything going on and kept everything on track. Finished the year 12-1 because of what he kind of laid the foundation and fall practice stuff. I mean, that's a bad situation, and Ryan Day stepped into it perfectly, I thought.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you have to go with the guy that was just given the $5 million contract, right? Like that's the obvious answer. I think this is one that you get a little bit of an asterisk with also. You have to give some of a hat tip here to Brian Hartline. I know Dwayne Haskins was able to make the wide receivers look that much better, but obviously Hartline was kind of done the same way. He kind of got thrown into a shit situation from the get-go, and the wide receiver output this season was fantastic. So I'm going with the co-award there also. Now, this is one of the fun ones because it's always a good time to sit and look back at the season before the bowl games and kind of get to relive some of the fun that was the 2018 season. What was the best single play of the year to you for Ohio State?
For me, there was one moment that I jumped out of my seat, yelled a lot of curse words, and was stoked. Like I was excited for the next hour. And I'm going to go with KJ Hill's touchdown against Penn State to go ahead and give them the win. I mean, that's like Penn State was kind of the big rival heading into that game, and they were ranked high. They wound up, falling off a little bit there towards the end, but that game in Happy Valley, did I get it right that time? I always mess it up.
That is not College Happy Station Valley, yes.
there in Happy Valley. Like, I just thought that was awesome, and that was my number one moment.
No, absolutely. That was a good one. It was a very good one. For me, it was the one that we got to witness live, and it was kind of the key play that sticks out from the 4-minute run against TCU that really turned that game around and sealed the game for Ohio State. I went with Draymond Jones's pick six. Like, you know, we were in the stadium. We talked about it after the game. Like, that was just such a moment, and to be there and to experience it, it was definitely something. So that was my favorite play of the season. Now, slightly different little number for you here. Now, this isn't just for a single play, but what was the best moment of the season for you as a Buckeye fan in 2018?
Me, personally, was that Michigan win, getting to storm the field. I thought that was awesome. It's something, you know, like I've always wanted to do, is go on to the field, and it was kind of my opportunity to do that. My general hate of people kicked in pretty quick, and I did not enjoy being on the field and pushed around, and, you know, a lot of people kind of like touching me and stuff. So like, but it was awesome to jump over that railing and go on to the field, and I thought that was awesome.
I'm a little disappointed that your best moment wasn't watching a Buckeyes game with me in Arlington. I'm a little heartbroken by that.
That was pretty awesome.
So I'm going to just put that out there. But for me, I kind of had to do this a little bit different, because we had a best moment at the time, and then there's a best moment now in my mind. So at the time, it was immediately following the bye week, watching Dwayne Haskins when he started to run the ball and was opening up to being a running quarterback when he needed to be. It wasn't just that he started running. It was the fact that he finally, you could see him taking over ownership of the team. Like, everybody jump on my back. I will not let you lose again. Just follow me. And he really, truly emerged as the leader of the season. And that obviously helped out against Nebraska. It helped out against Maryland. And that's going to help out when he goes to the NFL next season. Like, that's going to be a moment that people are going to remember. But looking back at it now after everything's happened, that kind of changed a little bit, because it's kind of nice sending Urban Meyer out with a consecutive Big Ten championship and getting him one more before we go, and getting him the chance to go coach in the Rose Bowl. So that was my best moment.
Nice.
So with all that being said, is anything else you want to put on record before we take a break?
Nope. Let's jump into it.
Sounds good, man. We've got Winovich Used Cars as our sponsor this week. So we get through this commercial here, we'll come back and we'll take a look at some of the bowl stuff for this season.
Why, hello, folks! We know how it is to be a youngin'. You want to go far and do things others only wish they could do. You have dreams. You want it all. Unfortunately, you're stuck in your great-grandpa's clunker. It's not even a collector's edition. It's a beat-up piece of shit that's been through 7 different drivers since the last time it won anything. But have no fear. Here at Oviedo Beach Used Cars, we have something to sell everyone. It doesn't matter that our entire inventory is made up of the same crap you have in your driveway. We won't make you champion anything. We sell you lemons like our uniforms. Any chance of anything we sell being worthwhile is only a mirage. But we will sell it anyway, and then sleep over at your house to make you like it. At Winovich Used Cars, we're used to jingling keys like a Christmas carol. Come see us today, 2 blocks east of the big house, right on Main Street in Ann Arbor. And who knows, buy something from us and put it in the trust of a great builder in Foxborough. You may just end up with something worthwhile, but we doubt it.
Прошу тебя о том, чтоб ты исчез, останься лишь кошмарным старым сном.
As a college football fan, bowl season is supposed to be one of the greatest moments of the year. It gives you a chance to actually see some of the matchups that are ones you don't get to see a whole lot, not just because they're not normal rivalries, but also because, typically now a lot of the bigger name teams are afraid to play other big name teams. They want to keep their football playoff hopes alive. And, a lot of teams will duck other top Power 5 conferences, looking at you, SEC and ACC. But, bowl season is a chance to get to see some of these matchups you don't typically get to see a whole lot unless it's, Michigan and Florida, who seems to play every other year now. But looking at the 2018-2019 bowl season, there's a couple games that are sticking out in my mind, and I kind of want to get your take on this a little bit. We'll talk about them, games that you want to watch and whatnot. Starting in the college football playoffs, obviously you got Bama and Oklahoma and Notre Dame versus Clemson. Of the two, which is the one that is the most intriguing? Which is the one you're most looking forward to? And what are you looking for out of the playoffs this season?
For me, it's easily the Alabama versus Oklahoma game. I have no desire to watch Notre Dame. I don't think they're a good team. You look at their schedule, and it looks like they played a bunch of really good teams, but it just seems like every team is on a down year. I mean, yeah, they played USC. They've played Pittsburgh. They played like all these big-name college football teams, but they're not good. What was like Florida State on there? I mean, there was just a bunch of big names that just turned out to be complete shit.
Well, their three best games this year were Michigan, Northwestern, and Syracuse.
Yeah. So, I mean, I have no desire to watch them. Alabama and Oklahoma, I think, will be a fun game. I think Alabama is going to be able to put up as many points as they want to. And I think Oklahoma will score just enough to kind of make it interesting. But I still think that's going to be like a 50-30 type of game. Clemson, I think Clemson is just going to steamroll Notre Dame. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm of the two. I'm looking more forward to the Alabama-Oklahoma game myself. I think it will be interesting, like you were talking about, that the offenses will be able to do what they want as they want. But I really kind of want to see if Kyler Murray makes it to Oakland A's spring training in one piece or two pieces, because Alabama may kill him because he's only 4'7" and 119 pounds. So he very well may end up in a full body cast going into spring training. So,
and it'll be interesting because against Alabama, he's not going to be able to run away from people like he did. Yep. I mean, like their defensive linemen are running like 4.5 40s and stuff. So, yeah, like you said, he's just a little guy, and
just a little
big guys chasing him down. So,
yeah. So, yeah, I have no desire to see the Clemson Notre Dame game. I think Notre Dame is going to get blown out in that one. So, looking at the other games, not just because we're Buckeye fans and, we follow the Buckeyes, we cover the Buckeyes, but I think the Rose Bowl will actually be a really good game. When it first was looking like that was where Ohio State was going, I was a little disappointed in not making the playoffs, and I thought, to myself, hey, there's no desire to see this. But when you really look at it, it's going to be a good game in my mind, and I think that's one that's going to be to watch. And obviously we'll break that down here in a couple weeks. So I know that one's out there. Now, looking at the rest of the slate of bowl games, give me one of you that you're really looking forward to. We'll rapid fire these. We'll go back and forth. Give me one that you have on your docket that you want to see.
Well, one that I want to see, just because we've been hearing nothing but like crap talking from their mouth for the past two and a half years, is UCF versus LSU. I think LSU's got a defense to kind of slow them down. I think Joe Burrow's got just enough of an offense to kind of put it to them. And it's one of those games where I would not be shocked if LSU wins pretty big.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'm looking forward to it. I'll root for Joey Burrow in that game for sure. But for me, it's it's not even going to be a great game in the typical sense, but I'm looking forward to the Music City Bowl, which is Purdue versus Auburn, because it's going to be a just a crap fest, which typically is that bowl game that turns out to be kind of entertaining. Like I have zero rooting interest in it. I could give a damn less who it is that wins, but it's going to be a small damn that I give. But it's going to be, I think, just a fun game to watch as a college football fan. Music City Bowl in 1228. So what's your next one?
Well, it may just be the Big Ten coming out in me, but it seems like these two teams, just like we kind of said about Michigan and Florida, play like every year. This one is like two teams that were, I'm pretty sure both of them were top 10 going into the year. They both kind of struggled quite a bit more than anyone really thought they were, that they would. So this one is Miami versus Wisconsin. I think that'll be a fun one. It'll be interesting to see which teams show up for both of these teams. They're both way better than they played. And it's always fun to watch Wisconsin and Miami play. I just remember like a few years ago when like it was like in the 50s and like Miami was like gathered around the heaters and stuff. Wisconsin's just out there in short sleeves, and Wisconsin just whooped their ass. So it'll be interesting to see if that happens again.
Okay. Do you know what bowl game that is? I don't have it in front of me here. You don't remember? Okay, no problem.
I don't have it up.
I have my next one will be actually on December 28th also. It is the Alamo Bowl, which fares Iowa State versus Washington State. You get a Mike Leach coach team in a carpeted domed stadium, and it just feels like that'll be an entertaining game to watch. So I'm kind of looking forward to that one. Go ahead, Brandon.
Watching Mike Leach coach in a dome is fun. Almost as fun as it will be watching Miami play in the Pinstripe Bowl in New York.
No, yeah, you're right. It was it's at Yankee Stadium, the Pinstripe Bowl. Yeah, that's right. So
it's gonna be cold. Like,
oh yeah, it's definitely not a warm scene. I'm kind of surprised Miami would agree to go play in New York City. And
I'm kind of surprised it's not Northwestern playing in the Pinstripe Bowl, because it seems like they play in that every year.
Every year, yeah. It started. But speaking of Northwestern, that's actually one of my next ones. It's the Holiday Bowl, Northwestern versus Utah. I don't think this will actually be a very good game. Like, the Holiday Bowl, when we were growing up and even into our 20s and early 30s, the Holiday Bowl was always like, a Big 12 team versus a Pac-10 team, right? It was always that high scoring. It was, a lot of offense. You had BYU was in there a bunch when they were, a better team. And you always had the runner-up from the Pac-12 always played in that game. So you had a lot of USCs and Oregons and those kind of games. And it was always high scoring. It's not going to be that way in my mind this year. Northwestern is going to be able to slow that game down. But I think Northwestern will fare better than they did against Ohio State when they take on Utah. So I don't think it'll be a great game, but I think it'll be a good game to watch. And I'm kind of interested to see how Northwestern plays out. So,
yeah, I mean, as a guy that watches a lot of Pac-12, I think that's going to be a very low-scoring game. And I think you're going to look at 17-14 type of game. And
yeah.
It would be fun to watch, I guess, if you like defense. But if you're looking for, a 50-40 type game, this ain't your show.
Yeah, it very well could be the lowest scoring Holiday Bowl in the history of that bowl game. But do you got any more for us?
Looking forward to Michigan versus Florida. I think that'll be a fun game to watch. Both of them have very good defenses. And their offenses are a little shaky at times. So this may be another game that's like super low scoring, or it could just be a game where both defenses just get blown up. But I'm looking forward to that one.
That's
also,
the Fiesta Bowl, right?
That one is, yeah, I believe so. Yep. And I really wish Michigan was able to play Georgia. I know we talked about this on text. I just feel like that would be an awesome game to watch. Also, I'm looking forward to Kentucky versus Penn State, because I don't buy into Kentucky being worth a damn at all. I don't think they're a decent team. I think they're more of like a Maryland type of team that we see in the Big Ten. I think Penn State will be a good matchup for them, and to prove me wrong or to prove me right.
Yeah, the Citrus Bowl, which is the Penn State-Kentucky matchup, that was the last one I had. Just as a college football fan, I think that'll be a fun one to see. You know, Trace McSorley, obviously, he's a damn good ball player as an overall ball player. I mean, he's not a great quarterback. He's not a running back, obviously, but he is a really good ball player, and that'll be an entertaining game. That was the last one I had highlighted. So
yeah. And by the way, Florida versus Michigan's the Peach Bowl.
Peach Bowl. That's right. No, it's LSU UCF is the Fiesta Bowl, right? Yep. You're right. All right. So last bit we have here in this segment before we break out, we've kind of talked about this a little bit in the past. We talked about it last year. Talked about it the year before with the other guys. We talked about it last year with Denzel Ward. But, you know, the conversation's coming up, and it's going to be brought up tomorrow with Draymond Jones meeting with the press. And it'll be, obviously, there are other players that are doing it. I know Will Grier from West Virginia has already announced that he's not going to play in the game, in his bowl game. With the players sitting out, are you okay with it? What's your thought on it? And just what's your general feel for that, man?
As a fan, I mean, I'd be wrong to say it doesn't suck a little bit. You know, like you want to watch Will Grier play, not necessarily against Syracuse, but you want to see him play against like the good teams, and you want to see the Buckeyes be at full strength going into Washington. But I mean, from a career standpoint, like you can't blame them, and I'm not mad at anyone that sits out. I mean, selfishly as a fan, I want them to, but like as a human being and a grown-ass man, like I understand what they're doing and I don't blame them. And I think it can get out of hand at some point. Like I see some of these people skipping bowl games that like I've never even heard of, and I follow college football pretty religiously. And you know, like if once you start getting like 6th and 7th rounders sitting out, it kind of starts getting a little too far. But I mean, guys like Dwayne Haskins, like I would not even be pissed if he sat out, you know, like that dude could be a top 10 pick here in a few months. And he said he's going to play. Denzel Ward last year, I had no problem with. So, I mean, it sucks as a fan, but you can't really complain about it too much.
Well, I know we talked about it before, like I said, and I talked about it earlier this year when Nick Bosa announced that he was withdrawing from school. You know, the point was made then, and I stand by this. If it's a guy that can only hurt his draft stock by playing, and he is sitting on a fat paycheck coming up, I have no problem with him sitting out. You know, you hate to use it as an example, but you look at Jake Butt at Michigan a couple years ago, right? When he got I think it was his knee he blew out in the bowl game, right? You know, obviously that hurt his draft stock a little bit. Jake Butt was a good ball player. You know, he was a good tight end. But, you know, you hate to see that kind of stuff happen. If it's a guy like Nick Bosa who had absolutely zero to gain by coming back at any point this season as far as individually, I don't blame him one bit. I don't fault them for wanting to go pursue their NFL dreams. Now, like you said, if it's some guy that's, you know, the backup long snapper, I mean, come on, let's get serious here for a minute. But, you know, any of these guys that are the true top 15 picks or something, I don't fault them one bit for not playing. So I hate it, but I don't fault them.
Yeah, I mean, like me, as I've mentioned a few times, like I follow Arizona State quite a bit. My wife is a huge fan of them. And N'Keal Harry, who I've been saying for the past few years is the top wide receiver, has already came out and said he's not playing. And I can't blame him. Like, why should he, who's going to be probably the first wide receiver off the board, top 10 pick, play in a Las Vegas Bowl on December 15th against Fresno State? Like, so, I mean, you just can't blame him. So,
yeah,
it sucks
he gains
as a fan.
Nothing by it. Yeah.
No, nothing at all. Like, he could go out and catch for 500 yards against Fresno State, and it's not going to affect his season, his draft at all.
Nope, not at all. All right, brother, let's go ahead and pause for a second. We come back, I'll get your son of a Schmidt. I'll give you mine, and then we'll touch on a couple things with the Schmidt picks and our rapid fire, and we'll go from there. So just a second.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for your favorite weekly segment.
Son of a Schmidt.
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 All right, Brandon, I know you've had this one lined up because you told me about it a couple days ago as you were getting everything ready, but go ahead and give me your son of a Schmidt pick or rant here, buddy.
Well, for me, I want to talk about something that I call back-asswards thinking. And what I mean by this is I feel like as a college football world, we have started to focus on the wrong things to determine who or what team is the best moving forward. You look at, let's talk about the college football playoffs, and you, even outside of like Oklahoma and the people that made it, you look at like Georgia and Ohio State, where there was the big controversy there. And everyone was so focused on Ohio State's performance against Purdue that the performance for Georgia and Ohio State against good teams didn't matter. So, like, we're focused on judging Ohio State being a good team on them sleepwalking into a game against a crappy team and losing, rather than looking at them going on the road to Penn State, look at them beating a top 4 team in Michigan. Whereas, like, the flip side, you got Georgia, who was fine. They didn't sleepwalk into any games against shitty teams, but they went in against 2 good teams and got their butts kicked. And so it's weird to me that when you're trying to determine the best team, instead of looking how those teams did against the good teams that they faced to determine if they're good or not, we look at how they did against the crappy teams. And that just doesn't make sense to me. You know, like, okay, Ohio State sucked against Purdue. But I feel like when you're trying to determine the top teams, you should look at their ceiling more than what their low is. Like, Ohio State's not going to go into a playoff game against Alabama like they would against Purdue. They're going to go into that game like they would against Penn State, or they would against Michigan, or they would against Northwestern. So to judge them off of that low, when they had just played, 8 straight games, they had guys battling injuries, instead of how they looked against Penn State or they looked against Michigan, just seems ass backwards to me. Also, you look at the same thing with the Heisman. The Heisman did the same thing where this one's even way different to me, where this is, I think, just has more of a factor to do with like how they looked at the teams. But like, Dwayne Haskins had a better stat-wise season than all those guys. But then even when you break it down, like I did in my article on Friday, where how each of these 3 players did against their top competition, and like nobody cares about that. Like, they're more concerned about what Kyler Murray's QBR was against Kansas or, you know, against these lower tier teams than they were about how he looked against good teams. You look at like against top 25 passing defenses, as I wrote about on Friday, Kyler Murray faced no top 25 passing defenses, and he still did not have as good a season as Dwayne Haskins did stat-wise. You look at Tua faced 2 Power 5 top 25 pass defenses. And in those 2 games, he combined for 328 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. I mean, like, how do we not look at how players do against their top competition, and we're so focused on what they do against the lower tier competition? You look at Dwayne Haskins. He faced 3 top 25 passing defense. He threw for 899 yards and 13 touchdowns with 1 pick. You know, like, you compare that to what Tua did. Tua even had a third game against a top 25 defense, passing defense, but it was against Arkansas State, who was at Power 5. But even throwing them into the mix and giving him 3 games, he only threw for 556 yards and 6 touchdowns and 3 picks against top 25. So it's just like, I don't understand our line of thinking as a college football world. Like, why are we so focused on what Dwayne Haskins did against a lower tier team? Like, what if we worried about what he did against Oregon State instead of worrying what he did against Michigan? I just don't understand the thinking of this from a team standpoint or from an individual award standpoint on why we're putting so much emphasis on how teams or players do against the crappy teams rather than and ignoring completely how they do against good teams. It seems ass backwards to me, and I feel like you should always compare a season and see how close they are there, and then break it down into how they did against their top competition. And it doesn't seem like we're doing that, and we're more concerned of the worst any player or team looked during a year rather than how like their highest level or their ceiling. So I don't know. It kind of is frustrating me, and I don't think anyone else seems to really care about it, but it just seems kind of ass backwards to me when you're trying to figure out your 4 best and you can still throw a team like Georgia up there who has lost to the only 2 good teams that they face by a pretty good margin, and we still consider them better because they didn't lose to a crappy team at some point. So that's mine. Son of a Schmidt. Let's just take time to look into shit, you lazy bastards.
Well, the funny thing about it is you can, even if you take into account the team's performance and that they lost to a very bad Purdue game, at the time, Dwayne Haskins had set the Ohio State single-game passing record in that game. So the team's worst game of the season, he still had over 450 yards passing. So, yeah, it's just, to me, that was just a full-out, bias against Ohio State kind of a thing. So, yeah, that I'm with you 100 right there, man. 100.
And I'll go ahead and say it. I said it in my article. I 100% feel like Ohio State and their players were blackballed this year because of what the perception was that Urban Meyer did.
No, you're exactly right. Exactly right. So, for my son of a Schmidt, this one's going to come as a bit of a surprise to people, I believe, because I talk about it all season long, how there are 14 weeks to the season, basically, and it is not nearly enough as a football fan. I enjoy the hell out of watching college football. I enjoy the hell out of sitting down Saturday morning and not really moving off the couch much and watching football until well after the wife goes to bed. And, we see the final play of the Hawaii game, which still ends at 2 a.m. here in Houston. But my son of a Schmidt this week, there are too many damn bowl games. There are some matchups that are fun. There are some matchups that we wanted to see that obviously we didn't get to see. It's leading to some of these players that are sitting out and whatever. But there are too many, and some of these lower tier bowl games they just need to do away with. I'm not even talking about the economic impact that a lot of these schools take on when they get invited to a bowl game. That's been documented many times. A lot of schools go in the hole because they have, a ticket commitment and they have, all this other crap that they have to pay for, and it doesn't cover sending the band out and all the support staff and everything. I'm not even going into that. But this year, there are 10 teams that are 6-6 playing in a bowl game. So of those 10, I know there's one matchup between Vanderbilt and Purdue where they play each other. I believe the rest of them are all by themselves. So there are at least 9 teams that have the chance to end the season in a bowl game with a losing record. And that's just asinine to me. You know, you got Tulane, BYU, Wake Forest, Minnesota, TCU, Baylor, Vanderbilt, Purdue, Virginia Tech, and Oklahoma State are all going to a bowl game. They're all 6-6. You know, bowl season starts in the next week or so. We're going to make some bowl picks now because between the time we're recording this and the next show comes out, there will be bowl games already played, and we're still 2 weeks away from Christmas. It's just too much. Nobody cares about the fosterfarms.com bowl or whatever the hell some of these have been, you know. I mean, it's to this point. I actually was doing this when I was looking into it. There were 8 teams that Ohio State played this year that are playing in bowls. It's easier for me to tell you the teams that Ohio State played that are not going bowling than it is to rattle off all the ones that are. Because the ones that are not going bowling are Oregon State, Rutgers, Indiana, and Nebraska. And that's it. Oh, I'm sorry, and Maryland. There were 5 of them. It's ridiculous because Michigan, Michigan State, Purdue, Tulane, Minnesota, TCU, Northwestern, and Penn State are all bowl-eligible teams this year. You know, and what it ends up doing is you mentioned it earlier, and it's the one that made it stick out because I really like watching Arizona State. They have a couple guys that I like to see, and it's because you've turned me on to them, but N'Keal Harry and Enos Benjamin are really good ball players. But they're playing in a bowl game 2 weeks before Christmas in Las Vegas, and it's like nobody wants to see this matchup now, you know? Well, you don't count. So it's just there's too much. You got to do something about it. I don't know what the answer is. I still think at some point you're going to end up with, you know, the group of 5 teams are going to end up with their own bowl/championship run. And the bowl subdivision teams are going to somehow have their own deal, and it may mirror each other. I don't know what they're going to do, but something's got to be done to make it right. And we got to get rid of these, you know, these bottom tier bowl games because, you know, there are teams that in some years 5 and 7 teams get to go bowling because they don't have enough eligible bowl games, or bowl teams. So it's just too damn many. We got to do something about it. Son of a Schmidt.
You are listening to the Sons of Schmidt podcast on the Ozone Radio Network, presented by Hayes and Cannon. The ORN is the online radio home of the Buckeye Sloopcast, the Silver Bullets podcast, Across the Field, and of course, the Sons of Schmidt, with new episodes broadcast every day of the week. For more information, go to www.theozone.net. And now, back to the show.
Now is the time when we're going to break out the We Are the Champions song here. So I'm going to see if I can't edit that into the background for you. With Navy not winning on Saturday, I officially had won the Schmidt Picks for the season. I finished strong, came on and won. Actually won by 2 games because of the Army-Navy game. 60-23. 60-23 was my record. 58-25 was yours. I baited you in and let you lead all season and then caught you at the end. So I'm going to pretend like that was our game plan. It was pure dumb luck, but I will take it either way. But with that being said, bowl season's getting ready to kick off. So we're going to cover the bowl games between now and the next episode of the Sons of Schmidt for you. First game we got is one we've referenced a couple of times already. The Las Vegas Bowl is Arizona State versus number 21 Fresno State. What do you got in that one, buddy?
Oh, you know where I'm going with this. I'm going to go with Arizona State. Who knows? Like, we'll see how it goes. I think Herm Edwards is doing something okay there. I think, Benjamin is going to have a big game. Like I said, N'Keal Harry's sitting out, so that'll hurt big time. And Manny Wilkins is playing, so that'll hurt big time for Arizona State. So
which one of those is the bigger impact? Wilkins playing or Harry not playing? Which one's going to hurt the most?
I think Wilkins playing. I'm not a fan of him. I'm not going to lie. So seems like a nice guy. Everything I read about him, he's one of those like awesome like mentor type of people, but I just do not care for him as a quarterback, and I'm looking forward to next year when Arizona State does not have Manny Wilkins at quarterback.
All right. Well, I'm going to go with the Sun Devils here also. I've seen them play a couple times this year. I do enjoy watching them play football. It is kind of fun. So next game is Tulane versus Louisiana Lafayette. They are playing in Orlando. For a couple of schools that are located just a couple 100 miles apart from each other in Louisiana, they're going to Florida to play each other. What do you got in this game?
Ohio State played Tulane, right, this year? Yeah, I'm going to go with Tulane then. They faced the best team in the nation, so Tulane.
I'm going with Tulane for the same reason that I mentioned earlier this season that I like Tulane. Their head coach's daughter is a sportscaster here in Houston, and she's really hot, so I'm going to go with Tulane in this one. And that is literally how I'm making my bowl picks this year. The next matchup.
Hot daughters?
Yes. The next matchup we have is Utah State versus North Texas. This one is being played in Albuquerque, and this is the We Don't Give a Damn for a Real Name.com Bowl. So what do you got in this one?
I know where you're going with this one. Otherwise, your wife will kick your butt, right?
I am not going with my wife's alma mater.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I'm going with Utah State.
Yep.
They just lost their coach, though, didn't they?
He's the one that's getting hired at Texas Tech.
Yeah, but I still think Utah State's a lot better than North Texas.
Yeah, they've had a better season. North Texas actually started out pretty good this year, but I'm just not a fan of the Mean Green at all, or their tradition of throwing tortillas when they score their first touchdown at home games, which is clearly a North Texas thing. Like they do it at Texas Tech and stuff too. It's really weird.
Scott Bakula was a hell of a quarterback for them, though, right?
No, that was Texas State.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Oh, that was, no. But it's funny because they were green in the movie, but Texas State is the one that has those horrendous uniforms that we watched earlier this season.
Maybe that's what's throwing me off is because it was green in the movie. I thought it was North Texas.
Next is Georgia Southern versus Eastern Michigan in Montgomery, Alabama. Another high-profile matchup that we've all been looking forward to from the day that they were announced. I know this is exciting. What do you got in this game?
This is the Camellia Bowl. All right.
What the hell's a Camellia?
I don't know, but I'm going with Uga South.
Well, I'm going to go with, and see, transitive property comes into play. Purdue beat the best team in the season of the year this year earlier when they beat Ohio State, and Eastern Michigan beat Purdue. So therefore, obviously, Eastern Michigan is the best team in the nation. I'm going to go with Eastern Michigan here. Next up is Middle Tennessee State, which is playing Appalachian State in I believe this is the one, I don't know if it still is, but it used to be the R&L Carriers Bowl or something like that in New Orleans.
Yeah, it's just the New Orleans Bowl now.
Okay. Well, anyways, in the New Orleans Bowl, what do you got in this matchup?
I'm going with Appy. They're another team that lost their coach, but I think Appy's a lot better than Middle Tennessee. It's not even close.
Well, we talked about it earlier this season at one point. Appalachian State is probably one of the best group of 5 schools that's out there right now. I'm going with Appalachian State also. And the feel-good story of the year, UAB, who did not even have a football team 2 years ago, takes on Northern Illinois in I forget this one's called. It's in Boca Raton
It's the Boca Raton Bowl.
That's fitting. It's at the Howard Schellenberg, whatever the hell his name was.
Helen Hunt.
No, the guy that used to coach Miami, asshole.
Yeah, it's Howard
Schellenberger. Yeah. At his field, at their stadium or whatever. But what do you got in this one, UAB or Northern Illinois?
I got nothing to go off of. I'm going with UAB. I just got to go with the
same
feel-good
thing
story.
I picked already. I'm going UAB also.
Yeah.
Now, this one at the Frisco, Texas. This is, I believe, where they actually have, is it the D2 or D3 national championship games in this stadium also, I believe it is. But San Diego State, who knocked off your Arizona State Sun Devils earlier this year, takes on the Ohio Bobcats. What do you got in this game?
Bobcats got a good team. I'm gonna go with San Diego State though. They seem to show up when they need to. This year they've lost to some pretty crappy teams, but they've beat some pretty decent teams, and I think San Diego State's gonna win this one.
San Diego State still has LaDainian Tomlinson, right? Or no,
yeah.
Marshall Faulk. They still have Marshall Faulk back there?
Yeah, true
okay.
that.
So, yeah, they'll be good with that one.
It's Farshall Malk.
Whatever. He's probably just as good anyways. I'm actually going to go with the Ohio Bobcats with this one. I really have no idea. I'm just no confidence picks in this one at all. So that's going to do it for our bowl picks to start with. Now, one of the things I wanted to let everybody know before we get into the last little bit here and we close this one up, our sister show, the Buckeye Sloopcast, has rolled out a confidence pick deal with a bunch of the guys from Hayes and Cannon and from the Ozone Radio Network, and some of the Ozone guys I think may be in on it. I'm not exactly sure who all got in, but I know Brandon and I are both getting in there. Jared and Kyle do a great job Mondays and Fridays for the Ozone Radio Network. Give those guys a listen and just kind of keep up with it. We'll see how bad we are at confidence picks because we talked about it before the show, and neither of us enjoy confidence picks for bowl games, and it's really a crapshoot. So just as a little plug there. So
yeah, mini son of a Schmidt time. Like I despise confidence picks. 39 games is way too many to rank my confidence on them. I tried, guys. I tried to play this game, and then it turned into starting at the top, 39 points for Alabama versus Oklahoma, just working my way down the schedule. So I tried. I despise it. Son of a Schmidt.
Yeah, second that. All right, so the last thing we're going to tie up with here, man, couple of names that are on the list here of guys that have the potential to go to the NFL after this season. Just quick hitter, I just want a pro that they're going pro or a no that they're going to stay and come back next year. I'm going to toss the names out. Give me the first answer that comes to mind, and we'll go from there. Now, I mentioned it earlier in the show. We both are just assuming that Draymond Jones is going to the NFL, so he is not on this list. So I'm not worried about him. But starting at the top, you ready?
Ready.
Rapid fire lightning segment. Do you have your buzzer?
I got my buzzer.
All right. Dwayne Haskins.
Pro.
Mike Weber.
Pro.
I think he goes pro also. KJ Hill.
Pro.
No.
Whoa.
I'm saying KJ comes back.
That would be awesome. I would love that shit. But
absolutely.
I think he's pro.
Michael Jordan.
No.
Jonathan Cooper.
I'm going no on that one too.
I'm going with no also. Malik Harrison.
No.
Damon Arnett.
Pro.
I hope to God, Merry Christmas to everybody. I hope pro. The answer is he's not going pro, but I am hoping and praying.
I think he will. I think no one loves Damon Arnett more than Damon Arnett loves Damon Arnett, and he's going pro.
Well, he falls into the next one too for me. Kendall Sheffield.
Pro.
See, I don't think either of them go. I want them to both go, but I don't think either of them go pro.
See, I think both of them need to spend another year in college, just not at Ohio State. But
I could go with that one too.
I think both of them will get very good grades, and I think both of them will combine very well, and both of them will be drafted in the first 3 rounds.
I could probably see that.
Not that I think either one of them are that great at cornerback, but both of them are going to run in that 4.3, 4.4 range. They're both going to test off the charts. So I think they will both go pro.
Okay. Last one. This one could potentially hurt. Jordan Fuller.
I'm going to go no on this one.
I'm saying no.
I think if he holds out another year, he could be a first-round pick next year when he gets more help around him and more continuity back there.
Yep. I agree with you 100%. I think he comes back. All right, man. So that's going to wrap everything up. Any last thing you want to get on the old tape machine before we send this one to post-production?
It's been fun. Like Mike said earlier, I will be out next week, so have
Thank
fun.
God,
with
our best
Mike.
show we've ever done.
And whoever our guest will be, I will be in Hawaii, living my best life.
I told you, I've got a few things up my sleeve I'm working on here. So this one, and y'all know how things can change, but this one, if everything goes the way it is, Ohio State fans are going to be real glad to hear this person's voice back on the podcast. So I think it'll be a good time. My good friend, enjoy your trip to Hawaii. I won't see you, obviously, until the week after that. That's all I've got, man. So let's ship this one out. We're getting closer and closer to Christmas and bowl season. So go Bucks, OH.
I-O.
Buckeye Nation, make sure you're getting the latest news and episodes from the Sons of Schmidt podcast. You can like us on Facebook at facebook.com/Sons of Schmidt. You can follow us on Twitter at Sons of Schmidt, or email the show, sonsofschmidt@gmail.com. And look for us on Hayes and Cannon at theozone.net.